I didn't plan to write any of this. I was supposed to sit in a freezing lecture hall, grind through an essay on coherence theories of truth, and be done by lunch. My name's Evan Mercer, third year at Riverton State, a not-fancy public university in the middle of corn, rail yards, and a river that always smells like a wet battery after a thunderstorm. The kind of place where you know the campus map by the cracks in the sidewalks. Mid-June, summer session. The building they stuck us in is Lacey Hall, a brick block with a green roof that looks like it's been mopped with algae. I walked in at 9:50 a.m., coffee vibrating in my hand, eyes skimming notes I pretended to memorize. You don't notice doors when they are where doors are supposed to be. You shoulder through, catch the gentle hiss of the hinge, the air conditioning kiss, and you're already late. That's all I remember about arriving. Cool air, fluorescent hum, and the proctor's voice telling us to begin. He wasn't our professor, and that was weird enough to blink at later. At the time, I just sank into the third row, stared down at the first page. Short answers, pragmatists versus correspondence theorists, a gimme if you've been awake twice in class. I scribbled, and then I flipped. On the second page, there weren't any words. There was a drawing, a neat pencil diagram of something made of rings and struts, like a metal spine with 3 ribs and a small dish tilted toward a circle. Labels without labels, little arrows that pointed at nothing. I knew it the way you know a face you've only seen once at age 13 from the back seat of a car through rain while your mom says not to stare. The familiarity made my thumbs sweat. I lifted the page closer, the paper hissed like cheap tissue. My stomach did that elevator drop. I had seen this. Where? The fear arrived first. The memory trailed behind like it was tied to a weight. I raised my hand. It felt stupid, 20, still asking permission like high school. Nobody came. I cleared my throat and looked up at the front. The proctor was gone. That was the exact instant the room felt too big. Chairs scraped. A couple of people 2 rows over, one with a silver nose ring, the other guy with a buzz cut and a chainsaw tattoo on his forearm, had their hands up too. The guy with the tattoo stood, looked at us like we were going to tell him what to do, then set his paper down and walked out. A few more followed. Most of us stayed because that's what school trains into you. If you leave, you fail. If you stay, there'll be instructions. I waited 40 seconds, maybe a minute, no footsteps, no 5 minutes left. Just that fluorescent hum and the high thin scratch of a dozen pencils slowing down. Then a kid in a Riverton baseball hoodie came back, white around the mouth. He didn't even step all the way inside. "You guys," he said, voice flattened by the room. "The front doors are gone." Nobody laughed. You know the tone when someone isn't joking. It comes with a smell like metal. We all stood because you don't want to be last when something true and impossible has been said. The foyer of Lacey Hall is a rectangle with a donor wall, a vending machine that sells beef jerky and weirdly warm yogurt, and double glass doors out to the horseshoe drive. I have opened those doors 100 times. They weren't there. Where the doorway should be was a smooth wall painted the same off-white as the rest. No seam, no scuff marks, no push bar shadow, just a rectangle of denial. "It's a remodel," someone said. "They've been doing." "In 20 minutes, the hoodie kid said. I put my palm on the wall. It was colder than it should be. No bounce, no hollow. I pressed harder, like you can convince reality to explain itself. It didn't. People split the way people do. A few joked too loudly. A few went urgent and managerial. Most hovered in that waiting pose, back on your heels, phone out, eyes searching for a sign that the adult in the room is about to appear. There wasn't an adult in the room. There was us. A girl I recognized from the first week's icebreakers. Rachel, neat braids, green sweater despite the heat, stood apart, tapping her phone with the hopeless patience of someone refreshing an airline app. I checked mine. No bars. Wi-Fi said connected, but everything spun like it was drowning in molasses. I opened Instagram and DM'd Jason, not in my class today, but usually in the library by 10. Go outside, Lacey, and tell me what you see, PLS. The DM crawled, hesitated, and then slid away like a tired animal. We fanned out. Lacey's got 3 floors. There's a bridge on 2 that crosses to Brennan Science, a fat glass tube that makes you feel like an ant in a novelty farm. There's a loading dock out the back where they wheel in lab freezers and Amazon boxes. There's a ground floor door by the art classrooms that no one uses unless they are sneaking out for a smoke. I took the art wing, smooth wall. I took the dock, smooth wall even where there should have been cinder block. The air tasted like dry paper. I met the others back in the foyer. The kid with the chainsaw tattoo had a name now because someone asked. Arnold. He looked like a person trying to breathe through a plastic bag. Windows, a girl with a purple backpack said, like she just remembered the sky. We all looked up, and the whole building seemed to realize it at once. Where there should have been glass, there was paint and drywall. Even the atrium's clerestory, that long row of panes over the main hall, was a soft, matte nothing. Is this a prank? Somebody asked, like some viral thing. Nobody had to answer. Viral things don't change the way sound behaves. Lacey Hall had a new acoustic, more muffled, like a coat thrown over a bird cage. Rachel drifted over to me. Do you have any service at all? She asked. Ghost bars, I said. Wi-Fi's pretending. I emailed the department, she said. It keeps spinning. My friend Jason's going to check outside, saying it felt like winding a watch. If the outside reported the building was normal, we could all go back to finals week. The part of me that believed anything good was already receding. We went up to the bridge with a small group because humans travel in packs the instant something inexplicable happens. The bridge to Brennan is 20 steps from the stairhead. On step 19, the light died. I don't mean the fixture was off. I mean the photons gave up. The cylinder of the bridge was there, handrails, brushed metal threshold. But beyond the threshold was a volume of black. Not fog, not smoke, not curtains or a projector. A there-ness of dark that drank my phone's flashlight like it was a joke. I pointed the beam in and watched it end against nothing inches from the lens. The darkness looked polished. That's the wrong word, but I don't have a better one. It didn't waver. It didn't reflect. It wasn't a hole and it wasn't a wall. It made my teeth hurt. Throw something, I said, because that's the caveman solution I had. I fished an empty plastic coffee cup from my backpack and cocked my arm. Don't bother, a skinny guy in a Vans hoodie told me. His face had the careful blankness of controlled panic. We threw 3. They didn't hit anything. Did they come back? Rachel asked. He shook his head. They didn't make a sound, he said. And the way he said sound made me feel like we were all underwater. Has anyone, she began, and then let it die. I'll go, Arnold said. He didn't wait for permission. He held his phone out like a talisman and stepped to the threshold. The light slid off his forearm and turned useless. He put his free hand into the dark up to the wrist and swallowed. His throat clicked like he'd forgotten how to. What do you see? I asked. My voice was quieter than I expected. Nothing, he said. Nothing, nothing. What about temperature? Rachel said, like a nurse cataloging symptoms. Feels like walking into a refrigerator and a coat closet at the same time, he said. It smells like, He made a face I couldn't read. Old gas, wet pennies. He stood there 3 heartbeats too long, then set his jaw in the way men do when they've already decided and need their body to catch up. He took a breath like a swimmer and slid forward. The dark folded around him like he'd stepped behind a curtain, except there wasn't a curtain. He vanished up to the shoulders, then the jaw, then the crown. We counted. Humans can't not count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Arnold exploded backward like he'd been yanked by a truck. He hit the terrazzo hard enough to echo and scrambled to his feet without using his hands, an animal move I didn't know people could do. He didn't look at us. He sprinted for the stairs, boots hammering. The sound of him ran down the building like a warning. I felt the urge to laugh, which is the brain's most idiotic self-defense. I swallowed it. "Okay," I said to nobody. "Okay." The word is a raft with a hole in it. My phone buzzed. "Jason, cops have tents around Lacey, tape everywhere, they're keeping people back, I can't get close. Why is your window covered?" Then another, "Dude, they brought SWAT, what is happening?" I showed Rachel. Her mouth made a perfect O and then flattened. "So it's not just us," she said, which was a comfort and also the opposite. We found Arnold downstairs in the student cafeteria, dragging chairs with a rhythm that changed his face. He didn't look up when I said his name. He took the metal-legged chair and hurled it at the smooth wall by the vending machine. It bounced and the sound came late. He grabbed another and threw that too. Then he flipped one and used it like a sledge, legs down, pounding with the red, blind focus of someone trying to beat their way out of a coffin. "Hey," a guy in a civil engineering shirt said, hands up but not stepping closer. "Hey man, move," Arnold said and kept swinging. The wall dented, flaked, gave. The first time the drywall tore, everyone cheered in that thin, cracked way people cheer when cheering is a spell. I picked up a chair and felt stupid until it landed and something inside me unclenched. Rachel picked up one too because not helping makes you a bystander, and no one wants to be a bystander in a story they didn't sign up for. A line formed. Lift, swing, splinter, breathe. Chalk dust got into our mouths. It tasted like kindergarten and funerals. 20 minutes later, there was a man-sized hole. Past it, more drywall. No studs, no insulation, no pipes. Just an impossible desert of gypsum. "This isn't how walls are," civil engineering shirt said, voice pitching up. "This isn't how walls are." We kept going because what else do you do when the only feedback the universe gives you is try harder? 40 minutes later, our hands were raw and the hole was a crooked hallway with shoulders. I held my phone out and filmed the light dying 2 feet ahead like fog on glass. I stopped first. There's a tiny clicking behind your sternum that means you're done now. I set my chair down and walked to the coffee kiosk. The girl who jokes about being in debt to a bean for life wasn't behind the counter. The pot was half full, steaming like she'd just turned away. There were pastries in the case, muffins with sugar like hail on top, ham croissants shining like they'd been buttered. The campus radio murmured somewhere with no words. I went behind the counter and poured coffee because being scolded by a barista who might not exist anymore wouldn't make my day worse. The coffee tasted burnt and perfect. I stared at the styrofoam cup sweating in my hand and had the thought we are alone in here. Not just alone in the no staff way. Alone like a museum after closing when they've turned the exit signs off and the painting stopped pretending. Rachel slid onto the stool beside me and didn't say anything for a while. Dust had turned her braids the color of chalk. She looked small and not small. "My email still hasn't sent," she said. "Jason says the police taped the building," I said. He saw tents up over the doors. She nodded like I'd told her the day of the week. "I don't like how quiet the air is," she said. "That's a sentence that shouldn't make sense," I said. She almost smiled. "Does that second page mean something to you?" she asked, and my insides got that elevator drop again. I stared into the coffee. The diagram was a knot in my head I'd tied myself and forgotten about. 13 pines. A cabin that hadn't been there the day before. The way my dad had carried my brother out like a sack of flour and wouldn't answer my mother's questions until we crossed the county line. I pushed the memory down like you push a splinter under the skin. "It's nothing," I said. "It's stupid." Rachel read my face in the way smart people do. She let it go. Arnold and two others came out of the hole, shirts dark with sweat, fingers ribboned red where the chair legs had skinned them. They didn't look at us. They grabbed 2 fresh chairs each and went back in without speaking. My phone buzzed twice, 3 times. Jason again. They pushed the perimeter back. "People are yelling." Sounded like shots. "I can't tell. You okay?" Then, "Dude, answer me." I typed, "We're still inside," and watched the typing indicator do its slow tide dance. Leave, return, leave, return. It finally slid away. A noise from upstairs rolled down the stairwell like marbles, feet, many of them, running in a circle. Another noise like someone chanting with their mouth taped shut. It was easy then to pretend I was hearing water in old pipes. Lacey Hall is good at making you lie to yourself. We weren't going to stay in the cafeteria forever. Even fear wants variety. We drifted like helium toward the library, carpet smell, fake ferns, posters about MLA format, because books feel like they can't be haunted even when they are. There were 3 kids at a table near the printer cluster, huddled tight, whispering with their foreheads nearly touching. When Rachel and I sat across the aisle and said, "Hey," they giggled, actual hand-over-mouth giggles, and stared at us like we'd walked in on a joke. The smallest one, a girl with chipped black nail polish, looked at me and said, "Do you remember the cabin?" in a voice like a song. I said no too quickly and then hated hearing my own voice do that. She smiled too wide. The other 2 laughed harder. Something under my ribs turned cold and narrow. Rational parts of the brain don't love being bullied by memory. They defend by inventing lists. Attendance policies, vending machine prices, the exact font of the building maps, Frutiger, always Frutiger. I stared at the emergency egress placard on the wall, little green man, arrow to the door that wasn't there, and thought, if this is a prank, it's cruel. If it isn't, I need better shoes. My phone buzzed one more time. "Jason, they're bringing a white truck, looks like generators. The tents look like surgery. I'm sorry, man, I'm so sorry." "For what?" I typed, even though I didn't send it. I looked at Rachel, who had her hands around her coffee like it was a campfire in a freezer. The library's quiet had stopped being calming. It had started to feel like the inside of a held breath. "I want to check the exam room again," I said. I don't know why I said it. Saying it made it true, the kind of true that hooks you forward. "Why?" she asked, but her eyes said she already knew. "Because we left something on the second page," I said. We stood. The 3 at the printer stopped laughing and watched us go. The smallest one hummed a few bars of something I recognized from church when I was 8, the kind of hymn that thinks it's a lullaby. The hallway back to the lecture room had that dentist office brightness that makes you think you won't die there. I put my hand on the door. It was heavier than it should have been, like every doorknob had been quietly replaced with lead. Inside, the lights were off. "Don't," Rachel whispered, when I reached for my phone flashlight. We listened. Pencils, dozens. The steady, unromantic grit of graphite on Scantron bubbles. It came from the dark like rain on a tarp. We backed out like burglars who'd walked into the wrong house, pulled the door shut, dragged 2 chairs in front of it because that's what humans do when they feel like a latch is the same thing as safety. The hallway air tasted like someone had kept a box of pennies under a humidifier. I wanted the cafeteria again as much as I'd wanted any place in my life. My childhood kitchen when the oven door fogged up at Thanksgiving. My freshman dorm when the RA burned popcorn at 2 a.m. The bus seat where the window leaked in spring. I wanted normal so hard my teeth ached. The building took a breath I could feel in my feet. I didn't know that sound yet. I would. We had one staircase up to a sky bridge that wasn't a sky bridge anymore. A hole in the wall that pretended it could eventually be outside. And a diagram on a second page I had been running from since I was 13. "Okay," Rachel said, and this time it wasn't a raft with a hole. It was the name of the road we were already on. "We're not staying still. We try up next." I nodded, and the fluorescent lights flickered once like a cheap wink, and somewhere deep in the building something croaked. The croak we heard didn't echo like a frog or a drain. It was lower, stretched, the vowel pulled until it frayed. Rachel and I froze halfway up the stairwell, the sound trembling through the concrete as if it were being played through the bones of the building. We listened again. Silence. Then another one closer, answering itself. "Basement pipes," Rachel whispered, but her voice didn't believe it. When we reached the landing, the hallway's emergency lights were on even though power shouldn't have flickered. Red strobes blinked without rhythm, just long enough to repaint the walls in warning. The sign ahead, "Bridge to Brennan Science," looked perfectly ordinary until we saw the end of the corridor. The dark was still there, only this time it pulsed. Not a pulse of light, but of pressure, like breathing behind glass. I could feel it in my eardrums. The rest of the group had drifted up behind us, half a dozen faces lit by phone screens in panic. Someone muttered that we should mark where the light died, so I reached into the janitor's cart by the door and found a roll of blue painter's tape. I tore a strip and smoothed it across the threshold. The tape looked absurdly bright against the gray tile, a line between possible and whatever this was. Arnold wasn't there. He'd vanished again, maybe back to his hole-through-the-wall crusade. I told myself that was fine. "Anyone have a long object?" I asked. A kid from Chem lifted a broom handle. "You planning on poking it? Better than walking in blind." We extended the broom into the darkness. The bristles disappeared instantly, then half the handle. No resistance, no reflection. He pulled it back, bone dry, unburned, unchanged. Rachel whispered, "What happens if we shine light from both sides? Maybe it cancels out." Nobody answered. Nobody had the courage to test it. Behind us, the stairwell light snapped off with a soft click. The only glow now came from phones and that stubborn red strobe. Each pulse caught the edges of faces that looked carved out of wax. Then something knocked from inside the void. 3 times, hollow, slow, not metal, not wood, like knuckles on an enormous drumhead. Every vibration went straight through my chest. Someone screamed. The group scattered backward down the hall, bumping lockers, swearing. I held the broom like it could mean something. The next knock landed harder. A puff of warm, rotten air pushed across the tape line, thick with ammonia and wet pennies. That was when the tape slid away on its own, peeled up from the tile and drifted forward like it had weight. It vanished into the dark and didn't fall. Rachel grabbed my wrist. "We're done. We're—" A flash of movement interrupted her. A hand, or something shaped like one, stretching out of the black, pale as candle wax, fingers too long, knuckles jointed wrong. It reached halfway into the hallway before curling back, palm up, as if beckoning. The broom clattered out of my hands. Everyone ran. We didn't stop until we hit the library again. A few students were still there, the trio of gigglers included. One of them, Black Nail Girl, was humming the same childish tune but faster now, like it was scoring our panic. Rachel collapsed into a chair, gasping. Did anyone else see the hand? Nobody wanted to say the word hand, but a dozen heads nodded anyway. The boy in the Riverton hoodie muttered, "Arnold's gone. He was downstairs. I heard him yelling, and now," he gestured helplessly. "Gone." Something inside me cracked, the part that still believed there was an adult in charge of reality. "Okay," I said, surprising myself. "If the bridge leads nowhere and the doors are fake, then maybe there's a top, roof access, maintenance hatch. The one near the janitor's closet," Rachel said slowly. "Third floor." The hoodie kid hesitated. "What about phones? Maybe they work up there." Hope. That's the cruelest word in any language. We clung to it anyway. On the third floor, the air felt heavier, full of that metallic aftertaste you get before a lightning strike. The hallway lights buzzed at different frequencies, like each bulb was tuned to its own panic. We passed classrooms where the glass windows in the doors had been replaced by plaster. Inside, shadows moved even though no one was there. I tried not to look. At the end of the hall stood the maintenance door, yellow, padlock gone, slightly ajar. Rachel reached for the handle. "Wait," I said. "Listen." From inside came a faint scratching, rhythmic, small, not the croak, different, a writing sound, the same graphite scrape I'd heard in the exam room. Rachel mouthed, "No." I mouthed back, "We have to know." She pushed the door open. The maintenance room smelled like oil, dust, and something sour. A ladder rose to a ceiling hatch, metal rungs streaked with dirt. Beside it, a workbench was scattered with tools and a single clipboard. On the top sheet was the university's letterhead, and below that, a hand-drawn sketch of the same machine from my exam paper. 3 concentric rings, a dish, an arrow. Only now someone had scrawled words in the margins. "It wants to know who remembers. Each exit is an entrance reversed. Don't say your brother's name." My stomach flipped. I didn't remember writing it, but I knew that handwriting. It was mine. Rachel read over my shoulder. "Evan, what is this?" "I don't know," I lied, because the truth felt radioactive. The memory of the cabin, my brother's glazed eyes, my father's silence, it all pressed at the edges of my skull like a migraine. I stuffed the clipboard into my backpack. The scratching started again, louder, coming from above the hatch now. The ceiling bulged slightly, as if something heavy was crawling across it. Then dirt sifted down through the seams. Wet, black soil pattering onto our shoes. The ladder rattled once, twice, then stilled. Rachel whispered, "That's above us." "I know. Evan, that's outside." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to think there was dirt because there was ground, not because the world had folded itself over the roof. I looked up. The hatch handle trembled. Another croak sounded, closer this time, resonating through the ducts. A second croak answered from below, from the stairwell we'd come through. We were between them. Back on the landing, half the group was gone. The hallway was wet, condensation or something worse dripping from vents that shouldn't have been open. The red strobe lights were steady now, painting everything in surgical color. Rachel grabbed my sleeve. "Look." Down the hall, by the bridge entrance, Arnold stood, at least the shape of him. He was facing the void, shoulders hunched, shirt torn. His head twitched at angles that didn't belong in a human neck. When the strobe hit, I saw that his skin had the dull sheen of wax and that his mouth was open too wide, jaw distended as if someone had tried to fit a second one underneath. He took a step backward toward us, slow, deliberate. Rachel hissed, "Arnold, can you hear me?" He stopped. Then his head turned all the way around without the rest of him moving. The sound was like wet rope twisting. I couldn't breathe. None of us could. Arnold's eyes were blank white. His mouth opened farther, unhinging, and the voice that came out wasn't his, it was mine. "Do you remember the cabin?" it said. That broke me. I grabbed Rachel's arm and ran. The others followed because motion is contagious. The croaking turned into laughter that chased us down the stairs. We didn't stop until we hit the main floor. The hole in the cafeteria wall had grown 10, maybe 12 feet deep now, and the people inside were still digging, faces chalk white, knuckles bleeding, movements mechanical. I shouted at them, begged them to stop, but none looked up. Rachel clutched her phone. The screen glowed weakly, battery red. "Service," she gasped. "Oh my God, it's 1 bar. Call 911, I said. She did. It rang once, twice, and connected. But it wasn't a dispatcher. A flat, synthetic voice answered. "You have reached the internal line for maintenance level 2. State the nature of your containment breach." Rachel froze. "What?" "Say the number of occupants," the voice continued. "Say the number that remembers." She hung up and dropped the phone. The call kept going, muffled through the speaker on the floor. "You can't leave until the count is even. You can't leave until the count is even. You can't leave until the—" I crushed it under my shoe. The voice cut mid-syllable. We stood in the wrecked cafeteria, breathing drywall dust and fear. Somewhere upstairs, the scratching started again, now joined by footsteps, hundreds of them perfectly in sync, marching circles. Rachel whispered, "If the bridge isn't night, then what is it?" I looked toward the dark hallway above us and thought of the clipboard note. Each exit is an entrance reversed. "I think," I said, "it's waiting for us to open the door from the other side." The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. I don't remember when we stopped pretending it was temporary. Maybe it was after the lights died. Maybe it was when the phone started ringing. We camped in the cafeteria because it was the only space big enough to see something coming. Half the group still clawed at the drywall hole. The other half sat staring at blank screens, mouths working silently like fish in a tank. Every few minutes, a faint vibration rattled through the floor, as if heavy machinery deep underground had woken up. Rachel crouched beside a dead outlet, fiddling with a portable charger that wasn't charging. "It's still got juice," she muttered. "Everything's just rejecting power." "Maybe we should try the lab wing," I said. "Generators, maybe." She shook her head. "We're rats in a maze. You just keep hitting the same wall, different paint." Her voice was small but steady. I clung to that steadiness like it meant the world was still real. At 10:37 p.m., the first phone rang. It wasn't mine or hers, someone else's down the hall. The ringtone was that default one everyone hates because it sounds like panic. We all froze. Nobody moved to answer it. When it didn't stop, Rachel and I followed the sound to the corner table near the vending machines. A phone lay face up, cracked screen, light flashing with each ring. The name across the display said MOM. The owner, a kid I recognized from Intro to Logic, stared at it like it was a snake. "My mom's dead," he whispered. "She died last year." "Maybe someone spoofed," I began, and then the call cut itself off. A voicemail icon blinked on the screen. The kid hit play, static. Then a woman's voice, thin and breathy. "Sweetheart, it's raining inside the walls. You have to count. Don't let it get odd." The message ended with a wet click. He threw the phone away from him, but it kept vibrating across the tile until it reached the drywall and went silent. More phones followed. One by one, they lit up across the cafeteria, dozens of screens glowing like bioluminescent eyes. None of them showed real contacts. Unknown caller, private line, no ID. The air filled with a layered chorus of ringtones and buzzes until it became a solid hum. Then, in perfect unison, every device displayed the same number, 123-456-7890. My stomach turned. Jason's story from earlier, the call before his roommate's suicide, flashed through my head. I looked at Rachel. She'd gone pale. "Don't answer," she said. Nobody did, but the phones answered themselves. One by one, speakers crackled to life, each voice slightly different but saying the same phrase. There is still an uneven count. Then silence. Then a second phrase overlapping in stereo. "Who remembers the cabin?" Rachel grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "Evan." I didn't say anything, I lied, but she could feel the tremor in my wrist. The building shifted again around 11. The hum of fluorescent ballast came back, but the light was wrong, too warm, like it came from an unseen fire. The drywall hole had grown wider without anyone digging. The air that seeped out was damp and cold. The diggers were gone. Only their chairs remained, arranged in a half-circle facing the void. Rachel whispered, "They got out." I stepped closer. The hole wasn't empty. On the floor just inside, something small gleamed in the light, phone screens, all showing the same number, 123-456-7890, call in progress. A muffled chorus of breathing leaked from the hole, shallow and rapid, as if 50 people exhaled together behind a curtain. I backed away. "They didn't get out," I said. That was when my phone vibrated in my pocket. It shouldn't have been possible. I'd crushed the signal hours ago, drained the battery to near zero, but the screen lit anyway, perfect white on black. "Incoming call, Jason Brenner." I almost dropped it. Rachel saw the name and shook her head violently. "He's outside," I said. "He texted me." "Then how can he?" The phone stopped ringing and began recording on its own. The timer ticked up, 1 second, 2, 3, though no voice came through. Just static and a faint tapping like fingernails on glass. I switched to speaker. Tap, 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 pause, tap, 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 pause, tap. Rachel frowned. "That's Morse code." I hadn't thought about Morse since Cub Scouts, but my brain filled it in. CABIN, the static cut off. Then Jason's voice, far away, hoarse. "Don't go up, it's mirrored, you'll fall the wrong way." "Jason," I yelled, "where are you? Are you outside?" "No," he said, and his tone changed, wet, slurred. "Not outside, just other side." The line hissed, and underneath his breathing I heard another sound, a croak turning into a laugh, turning into words not meant for a human throat. "He's with us. The count is even now." The call ended. Rachel's hands were shaking. What did he mean, mirrored? I didn't answer. I couldn't. By midnight, people started splitting up again. Half the group wanted to stay put, barricade, and pray for daylight. The rest thought daylight was the lie, that it was midnight forever and outside had already been rewritten. One girl carved tally marks into the tile with a butter knife, counting every noise we heard from the walls. I lost track at 47. Somewhere above us, something enormous began dragging itself across the ceiling. Dust sifted down. Every time it moved, the lights dimmed. When it stopped, we heard faint voices, thousands of them, murmuring in time with our heartbeats. I tried recording it on my phone, but playback was silent. Instead, a new audio file appeared, labeled with today's date. I hit play. It was my own voice whispering, "It's not the same building anymore." At 12:33 a.m., Rachel found another exit that wasn't one. A door behind the soda fountain, employees only, now led into a corridor we hadn't seen before. The tile was wet, the air cold enough to fog our breath. Signs on the wall were mirrored backward, letters reversed as if printed for another dimension. We walked 15 feet before seeing the first phone booth. Yeah, an actual antique glass phone booth, bolted to the floor, handset dangling. Inside, a single light burned orange. A payphone in 2025 inside a university cafeteria hallway. I almost laughed from the sheer absurdity. The handset buzzed. I stared at it. Rachel shook her head no. The buzzing grew louder, angrier, until it became a low electronic scream. I lifted the receiver. "We warned you about remembering," the voice said. "Now it remembers you." I dropped the phone and ran. Behind us, the booth exploded in light, glass dissolving into fine dust that tasted like copper. We collapsed back in the cafeteria. Everything looked the same but felt smaller, compressed, like the walls had crept a few inches inward while we were gone. The others were silent, staring into nothing. Rachel whispered, "If the numbers are counting us, maybe we can make it even again." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. She just looked toward the hole in the wall and started walking. "Rachel, stop. I just want to see if it stops calling," she said, and stepped inside. Her silhouette vanished beyond the 5th-foot mark. Swallowed by gray, I waited for a scream. None came. Only a single phone vibration, faint and distant. I pulled out my phone. 123-456-7890. Incoming call. This time, the caller ID said Rachel. I let it ring once, twice, and then I answered. "Evan," her voice whispered, broken by static. "I think I found the door." "Where?" "Rachel, where?" "Not where, when." The call ended, the lights flickered, the air grew colder. From the hole, that same croak answered back, but now it was saying my name. I don't know how long I sat with the phone pressed to my ear after Rachel's voice cut off. Could have been seconds, could have been an hour. Time inside Lacey Hall had started to stretch like melted glass, every moment a reflection of the last one, bent, slippery, wrong. The cafeteria looked unchanged, but it wasn't. The fluorescent panels buzzed too slow, like a recording played at half speed. The shadows didn't match the light. I caught myself watching them move a heartbeat late, as if the darkness had its own choreography. There were fewer of us now, maybe 15. Half of those stared blankly into the drywall hole, their faces slack, lips whispering silent numbers. The rest hovered near the tables, hugging themselves against a cold that came from no vent. The air smelled like pennies and old fry oil. I was still gripping Rachel's last call log when the room shifted. The first sign was the coffee pot. It had been sitting empty since morning. Suddenly, it hissed and filled itself halfway, bubbling with black liquid that didn't steam. Then the subway counter lights flicked on, one by one, like theater bulbs before a show. The smell of baking bread rolled through the room, rich and sweet, except underneath it was another scent, sharper, animal, something like burning hair. A voice crackled through the shop speaker system. "Attention staff, lunchtime protocols are in effect." Everyone looked up. Behind the glass, trays of food were materializing. Sandwiches, cookies, soups, perfect replicas of cafeteria food, too perfect. The colors were hyperreal, greens too green, tomatoes glowing faintly at the edges. Then a hand appeared behind the counter. human but pale as wax, wrist vanishing into the air like it came out of nothing. It arranged the sandwiches carefully, each motion deliberate, too slow. When it finished, it waved. One of the students, a freshman I barely knew, laughed shakily. "Okay, this is some art department prank, right?" "Right." Nobody answered. He walked closer anyway, drawn by hunger or denial. He leaned over the sneeze guard. "Hey, who's back there?" The hand reached out and pressed his face against the glass. He screamed once, short and bright, then the lights flared white. When they dimmed, he was gone. Only a greasy print of his cheek remained on the inside of the glass, and the sandwiches were smoking. That's when everyone broke. Some ran for the stairs. Others picked up chairs again and started smashing at the walls, at the tables, at each other. I just froze. My body wanted to move, but the floor felt soft, almost breathing. Every tile bowed slightly under my shoes like flesh. The smell thickened: burnt bread, sweet rot, gasoline. Somewhere close, something popped, and orange light spread across the ceiling like dawn. At first, I thought the ovens had caught fire. But the flame wasn't climbing up. It was spreading sideways, crawling across the ceiling in lazy, liquid waves. Heat didn't come with it. It was cold fire, color without warmth. The orange turned to blue, then to black smoked gray, and from within it a shape began to sit up. A body, charred black from head to toe, skin cracked open like burnt clay, smoke seeping from the wounds. It unfolded from the fire and stood. The cafeteria lights flickered out, leaving only its dim inner glow. I could see its eyes behind the carbon shell. Wet, silver, rolling independently like fish eyes. The other students backed away in silence. One whispered, "It's still alive." The thing moved. Every joint made a sound like glass breaking under pressure. It looked down at its own hands, then at us. Then it laughed, a dry hiss through coal dust, and the sound made my teeth ache. I grabbed a tray and hurled it. It passed straight through the figure, clattering across the floor. The smoke where it passed thickened, swirling, and then vanished, as if erasing the physics that had allowed the throw. The figure took a step forward. The tiles sagged beneath its feet. With every movement the air warped. The fluorescent tubes overhead bent like rubber, flickering in sympathy. I stumbled backward until my hip hit the counter. The fire thing raised its arm and pointed right at me. Rachel's voice whispered in my memory, "I found the door." The creature tilted its head. Then, without warning, it collapsed into a puddle of shadow that crawled across the floor, fast and silent, slipping under the kitchen door and gone. For 3 long breaths, nothing moved. Then the subway sign flickered off. All the food vanished, leaving only the smell. We stood there in stunned quiet until one of the remaining students, a thin girl with an rock patch on her sleeve, whispered, "I saw daylight." Every head turned. She pointed toward the far end of the cafeteria, where an exit sign glowed green above what had always been a blank wall. We hadn't noticed it before. The plastic looked new, pristine, like it had been installed minutes ago. "Maybe it's open," someone said. The crowd surged. We pushed tables aside and hurried toward it, desperate. The closer we got, the brighter the sign glowed, its green turning almost white. The wall beneath it shimmered, rippling like water. Someone shoved forward and hit the surface with both hands. It yielded, soft like skin. The student screamed and tried to pull back, but his arms were already sinking in. The wall swallowed him up to the shoulders before anyone could react. Then it sealed over him completely, leaving only the exit sign humming overhead. The glow dimmed to normal green again. I took a step back. "It's not daylight," I said. "It's bait." That was when the TVs turned on. Every monitor on the wall, usually looping campus announcements, lit up with grainy video feed. Camera angle the cafeteria from above. On screen. We were all there, same clothes, same positions, but there was something off. The other us weren't moving normally. Their motions were jittery, sped up, as if filmed in stop motion. One of them, the version of me, stood perfectly still in the center of the room, eyes blacked out, mouth open in a perfect O. Someone shouted, "That's live, look, he's moving." The figure on screen tilted its head upward directly into the camera. Then every monitor glitched, freezing on a single frame, my own face staring straight into the lens. The caption at the bottom read, "Lunch break 12:01 p.m., except it was midnight." Then the screen flashed once more, replaced by a single sentence. "The count is even." Every phone in the room buzzed in response. The same number again, 123-456-7890, incoming, overlapping until it became a vibration through the floor. And then from behind us the drywall hole answered. Dozens of voices in perfect unison, speaking from deep inside the darkness. "Lunch is over." The fluorescent lights burst back on, blinding white. The hole in the wall was sealed, smooth again, as if no one had ever dug it. The tables were perfectly arranged. The room was spotless. Even the air smelled clean, faintly lemon. The others blinked around, confused, muttering, wasn't the wall? Where's the smoke?" I looked down at my phone. The call timer reads 00:12:01, still running. I put it to my ear. Silence. Then faint breathing. "Evan," Rachel's voice whispered, "don't eat anything." The line went dead. And somewhere, far above in the vents, I heard the cafeteria intercom click on again. "Welcome to the second lunch period." The smell of bread came back, sweeter this time. When morning should have come, it didn't. The clocks all said 7 a.m., but the light through the ceiling panels stayed the same tired gray. It wasn't darkness, more like daylight remembered wrong, the way a dream misremembers someone's face. The cafeteria still smelled of baking bread even though no ovens burned. The walls were perfect again, smooth and new, but every so often I'd catch a seam where there hadn't been one before, a faint rectangle breathing beneath the paint. We had stopped pretending time mattered. We counted our hours by the sound of the air system. Every time it cycled on, we marked a tally. By that measure, it had been 9 cycles, 9 hours since Rachel's last warning. Nobody ate. By the 10th cycle, the others began whispering about digging again. There was a boy named Kyle, buzzcut, jittery, who swore he'd heard voices behind the far wall of the student lounge. "They're talking about us," he said. I heard my name. He wasn't wrong. I pressed my ear to the plaster and heard what sounded like conversation, familiar cadence, familiar syllables, until I realized the voices were our own, repeating fragments of what we'd said hours earlier. Rachel wasn't back. Her absence was a bruise we couldn't stop touching. Every noise that echoed through the hall made me think it was her coming around the corner, but it never was. So when Kyle picked up a broken table leg and started smashing at the plaster, no one stopped him. The first blow left a perfect crater the size of a dinner plate. The second sent white dust across his face. The third tore a hole that breathed cold air. Behind the wall wasn't insulation. It was another wall, gray, metallic, smooth as skin. It rang when struck, but the sound was delayed, like hearing thunder seconds after lightning. We traded glances. Kyle grinned the way people grin when they've already gone too far. He kept swinging. The metal wall began to give. With each hit, the echo deepened, gaining pitch until it sounded less like metal and more like water sloshing in an enormous tank. Then the hole burst open and the world changed. The first thing that poured out wasn't liquid. It was light, a thin, colorless beam that shimmered like heat haze. When it touched the floor, it spread, outlining a circle 12 feet wide. Inside that circle, the tile dissolved, revealing something beneath that was neither floor nor space. It looked like ocean water, not blue, not green, gray and rippling like mercury. I could see faint reflections of our faces bending on its surface, though none of us were moving. "It's wet," someone whispered. Kyle crouched, extended his hand. "Don't," I said. He touched it anyway. The instant his fingertips broke the surface, the light hardened. A shockwave of sound, like drywall being torn for miles, rolled through the building. Kyle screamed and fell backward, clutching his hand. The fingers were covered in a layer of wet plaster that was already drying, fusing to his skin. He howled, shaking it, breaking chunks away, revealing blood beneath. "It's inside," he sobbed. "It's in the veins." The others backed up, stumbling over chairs. The gray water bubbled once and went still. I don't know who first called it the Drywall Ocean. Maybe it was me. The name stuck because it made sense in the way nightmares make sense while you're in them. We set up a perimeter, if such a word even meant anything anymore. Every time we looked away, the circle expanded an inch. By the 12th cycle, it filled half the cafeteria, perfectly round, reflecting nothing but static gray. The temperature dropped. Frost rimed the tables nearest the water. The air smelled like wet concrete after a storm. That was when the humming began. At first, I thought it was the ventilation system again. But it carried melody, low, rhythmic, almost mechanical. The gray surface quivered with every note. Ripples formed into concentric rings that reminded me too much of the diagram from the exam. It was the same geometry, the same pattern that had haunted me since the cabin. I pulled out the clipboard from my backpack, the one I'd taken from the maintenance room. The margins were smeared, but the sketch was still there. As the hum deepened, the rings on the page began to glow faintly, as if the pencil lines had been drawn with phosphor. "Evan," whispered one of the students, a girl I barely knew, "it's sinking." I looked from the page to the gray circle. The ripples matched the drawing perfectly. The final ring aligned with the edges of the circle, and then the water spoke, not with words, with images. They flashed across the surface like reflections. A coastline of jagged metal towers, a pyramid floating above black waves, faceless figures walking upside down beneath it. For one dizzying second, I saw Rachel standing among them, her hand pressed against invisible glass, mouth moving in silence. Then the image fractured into static. The floor beneath our feet tilted, groaning. Tables slid toward the circle. The air roared like wind through a tunnel. Someone screamed that the building was collapsing, but it wasn't. It was sinking. Outside the windows, the fake windows that had never been real, I saw motion. Shadows swimming upward, huge shapes gliding like whales. The glass stretched but didn't break. The walls bent inward and the hum rose to a scream. The circle split open down the center. A metal grate pushed upward through the gray, dripping with viscous sludge. The pieces locked together until they formed a platform, rough, rusted, hovering 3 feet above the surface. Beyond it, through the widening hole, I could see an endless metallic sea stretching to the horizon, waves breaking against structures that defied perspective. The drywall ocean wasn't under us. It was above us. Or maybe we'd fallen through the ceiling of somewhere else. Somewhere below or above, depending on how you measured madness, the hum became a voice, mechanical but not emotionless. The test continues. Please remain seated. We didn't. We ran. The cafeteria doors were gone again. Walls had rearranged themselves into narrow corridors lined with vent grates that exhaled mist. Every few yards, water dripped from nowhere, pooling in perfect circles that mirrored the ocean's gray. Behind us, the voice repeated. Containment compromised. Adjusting parameters. And with each word, the floor rippled, chasing us forward. We burst through a final hallway and came out somewhere impossible. The main foyer, but open to the sky. Except the sky wasn't sky. It was an iron-colored canopy of cloudless storm, and where the campus quad should have been, there was only ocean, flat, metallic, endless. The entire university floated like a barge on it, foundations chained by cables thicker than trees. The air tasted of salt and ozone. The horizon pulsed with lightning that never struck. In the distance, maybe half a mile away, I saw a cluster of black towers rising from the sea like knives. Between them, something vast moved, a serpent made of cables and bones, its head a shining skull miles wide. Rachel had been right, the door wasn't where, it was when. The drywall ocean shimmered, and the hum resolved into that same awful number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We all turned to the sound. Kyle was gone. Only his plaster-covered hand remained on the floor, fingers still counting. We stood there on the edge of the impossible sea, knowing every path led deeper. Behind us, Lacey Hall's roof peeled open like paper, revealing more of the metallic architecture underneath. Corridors unfolded into scaffolds. Classrooms collapsed into catwalks. The campus wasn't a building anymore. It was a shell over something ancient. Rachel's voice, faint, distorted, came through my phone one last time. "You're close," she said. "But you're not going up, you're going down." Then, from beneath the ocean, a light as wide as the horizon blinked open, an eye reflecting us all. The eye beneath the sea didn't blink again. It just watched, unbroken, patient, like it had all the time in every universe. I realized then, time wasn't moving the same way anymore. The clouds froze mid-swirl, the lightning stuttered and hung there like torn film, and the hum of the drywall ocean slowed until it was almost a pulse. None of us spoke. There were 6 of us left now. Me, Nora, the rot girl, David, engineering major, Priya, always crying, Julian, art kid with a camera, and a freshman named Will who hadn't stopped whispering prayers since the cafeteria. The silence pressed against our eardrums. Then the ground shivered once, a short, sharp knock like something beneath the building had just kicked the foundation. "Containment breached," said the voice again, calm and almost disappointed. "Redirect to maintenance sector." The floor split open. The tiles didn't crack, they peeled, like pages of a notebook curling back to reveal text underneath. Beneath them was a stairwell descending into lightless concrete. A metal sign above it read simply, "Maintenance access, authorized personnel only." None of us wanted to move first, but the floor around us was starting to soften, becoming slick and gray. Every step we didn't take was one step closer to being swallowed. "I'm not dying in a hallway," Nora said, and started down the stairs. We followed. The temperature dropped 10 degrees by the second landing. The air felt heavier, thick with humidity and the faint chemical tang of wet plaster. Our shoes left ghostly prints that faded seconds later. The deeper we went, the more the stairwell warped, walls bending slightly inward as if they were alive and breathing. When we reached the bottom, the world changed again. It was an industrial corridor, long and narrow, the walls lined with pipes that ran in impossible directions sideways, looping back into themselves, vanishing into the ceiling. Every few meters, there was a red emergency light that flickered between two states, on and something else. In that something else, I could almost see shapes moving behind the glass, silhouettes pressed against the inside of the light itself, as if the bulbs were windows looking into another place. "Where the hell are we?" David whispered. Will pointed to a metal panel bolted to the wall. It read, "Lacey Hall Facility Maintenance Zone 6B. Constructed, unknown. Supervisor J. Henson. Status, incomplete." None of us recognized the name. We walked. Every footstep echoed too long, overlapping like there were 20 of us instead of 6. Somewhere far away we could hear dripping, slow, deliberate, as if the ceiling itself was bleeding water. After a while we came to a row of doors. Each had a number burned into it. 1 through 8. Door 1 was ajar. Inside was an empty office, the floor covered in dust and what looked like mold until it moved. Tiny white filaments twisting upward, reaching toward us. Priya screamed and slammed the door shut. Door 2 was locked. Door 3 wasn't. Behind it was a small maintenance bay filled with control panels and valves. A single fluorescent bulb hung from the ceiling, swinging gently even though there was no wind. Julian brushed past me, raising his camera. "If we make it out, people have to see this." "Put it down," Nora said. "You're wasting battery." He ignored her, focused on the panel. There was a label above it, Drainage Control Primary Sector. Below that, 4 switches labeled simply A, B, C, D. Only switch was lit. "What happens if we turn it off?" he asked. "Don't," I said. "We don't know what," but he'd already flipped it. The entire building breathed. Somewhere above, deep and distant, came the sound of water rushing through pipes, gallons, tons, moving too fast to be real. The concrete under our feet trembled, and the red lights down the corridor flared all at once. Then came the whispering, soft at first, then louder everywhere at once. Voices crawling through the walls, layered in overlapping languages, none complete. Every word felt half remembered, half erased. Priya covered her ears and sank to the floor, sobbing. "Make it stop. Please make it stop." Julian stumbled back from the control panel. The bulb above him flared white and burst. The flash illuminated something behind him, a shape pressed flat against the wall, human-sized but two-dimensional, like a shadow that had peeled off its owner. When the light died, the thing stepped forward. It wasn't a person. It was a copy, Julian's copy. Same face, same clothes, same trembling hands except for the eyes. His were normal. Its were black sockets full of wet, moving static. It raised a hand in perfect mirror motion. Then it smiled. Not a human smile. A recording of one. Julian froze. "Is this part of the—" The copy reached out and touched his throat. There was no scream, just silence, as if the air had been cut from the world. Julian dropped and his shadow hit the wall behind him like ink. The copy stepped back into it and was gone. We stood paralyzed for what felt like minutes. Finally, Nora said, "We keep moving." No one argued. We passed the remaining doors without opening them. Each had strange sounds leaking through, murmuring machinery, once even laughter. At door 7, we found a trail of wet footprints leading out, disappearing into the dark. They weren't ours. At the corridor's end, the walls opened into a maintenance atrium the size of a gymnasium. The ceiling was lost in shadow, a web of pipes and catwalks vanishing upward. In the center was a vast circular drain, metal, rusted, 10 feet wide, and above it, hanging by cables, a rectangular shape the size of a shipping container. It was the same color as the Drywall Ocean. Its surface shimmered, not quite liquid, not quite solid. There was a plaque on the nearest support beam. Substructure 0, primary sink. In the event of containment failure, reverse the flow. Nora squinted at it. Reverse what flow? I looked up. High above us, one of the pipes was pulsing, glowing faintly from within like blood moving through a vein. The same hum from the ocean vibrated in the air. Then slowly the container began to descend. At first it made no sound. Then came a low grinding, a hydraulic sigh, and the stench of seawater mixed with burning plastic. The surface of the container rippled as it lowered into the drain. Something inside was pushing outward, hundreds of shapes pressing against the translucent walls like faces in wax. Will started whispering prayers again. Priya said, "It's watching us." She wasn't wrong. The faces inside the thing were moving in sync, turning toward us one by one. Their eyes opened, glowing faint silver. Some of them looked familiar. Rachel's face was one of them. "Reverse the flow," Nora said again, scanning the room. "There has to be a control." We fanned out. I found a panel built into the floor. It was ancient, rusted, covered in what looked like fingerprints pressed deep into the metal. There was a single lever labeled flow direction, and beneath it, outward/inward. The lever was set to inward. Nora crouched beside me. If this thing's feeding into the building, then reversing it might drain it. I said, she nodded, or kill us. We pulled the lever anyway. The reaction was immediate. The lights above us flared red, sirens screamed, and the hum became a roar. The container froze mid-descent, shuddered, and then split open down the center. A surge of gray water exploded outward, flooding the floor, sweeping us off our feet. The water was cold, not ocean cold, cosmic cold, like the temperature of a star that had died. My breath fogged instantly. We fought to stand, slipping across the metal grates as the fluid drained toward the pit. In the chaos, I saw the faces again, now swirling freely through the flood, screaming without sound, dissolving into foam. Rachel's face looked right at me before vanishing under the surface, and then I heard her voice in my head. "You weren't supposed to open it." The water drained as fast as it came, leaving only steam. The container was gone. The pit beneath it glowed faintly, pulsing with light that looked alive. When the siren stopped, the voice returned over the intercom, calm again. "Maintenance complete. Return to your seats." Nora coughed, pulling herself up. "Yeah," she said, voice shaking, "not a chance." Then we realized Will was gone. In the center of the drained pit, something was standing. At first, it looked like a statue. Then it took a step forward, dripping gray water, wearing Will's jacket and smiling like it had just learned how. We ran. Down another hallway, through rusted doors that opened on their own, past more pipes and vents and murals of shapes that looked like stars mapped wrong. Everywhere we went, the hum followed. The maintenance floor wasn't a floor anymore. It was a lung, expanding and contracting with each beat of that impossible rhythm. When we finally collapsed against a wall, gasping, Priya pointed behind me. The concrete had started to peel. Beneath it was gray light, the same color as the ocean, pulsing like a heartbeat. "It's everywhere," she whispered. "We're inside it." And I realized with cold certainty that she was right. The building wasn't sinking into the Drywall Ocean. The Drywall Ocean was rising through the building. We ran until the floor changed color. The gray metal under our shoes turned to beige tile, ordinary, university tile, and for a second I thought maybe we'd escaped. But then I noticed the tiles were too clean, too new. Each one was stamped with the same faint serial number in the corner, Lacey Hall 00 restart. The corridor led straight into a stairwell. A normal one. White walls, handrails, concrete steps. It looked like salvation. Priya was the first to reach it. She swung the door open and a gust of cold air hit us, dry, sterile like freezer breath. The smell of detergent and metal made my stomach turn. But behind us the walls were still peeling, revealing that sickly light underneath, so we went up. At first it was just stairs, ordinary, boring stairs. We climbed 2 flights before Nora said, "We're going too long." She was right. We hadn't hit a landing in at least a minute. The walls stretched upward endlessly, same white paint, same buzzing fluorescent strip light repeating every 12 steps. Every time we looked down, the floor below was gone, just fog. "Keep moving," David said. "Don't look down." We climbed. After the 20th turn, the fatigue set in, thighs burning, lungs aching, but the air didn't change. No elevation difference, no shift in pressure, no sound of wind. Just the mechanical rhythm of our shoes against the steps, like a looped audio track. That's when we saw the first door, a small metal door marked level 3, except we'd already passed level 3 back when we started. Nora tried the handle, locked. Priya leaned her ear against it. "I hear footsteps," she said, "and typing like a classroom." David frowned. "We're still inside the building." "Then why is it above us?" I asked. Nobody had an answer. We kept going. By the time we reached the next door, I'd lost count of the flights. My watch said 12:00 exactly, same as it had since the Drywall Ocean first appeared. This door read, level 3 again. "Same number," Nora muttered. "We're looping." David banged on it with his fist. "Hey, anyone in there?" Something answered, a single knock from the other side. Then another, closer. Then another, right beside his ear. He jumped back. The door bent inward slightly, like something heavy had pressed against it from the other side. I caught a glimpse of movement through the crack, a hand, pale, wrong, with too many joints bending backward. "Go," I said. "Now." Climbed faster. The footsteps followed from below, steady, deliberate, 1 floor behind us no matter how fast we moved. We didn't talk for a while. The repetition started to break me down. I could predict every sound, the buzz of the light, the squeak of Nora's boot, the way Priya whispered numbers under her breath. Everything was synchronized. Then the stairwell shifted. The next step down vanished, replaced by smooth concrete. The steps above warped, spiraling sideways, connecting into the wall like a corkscrew. We were no longer climbing, we were rotating. Nora pressed her hand to the wall. "The stairs are folding around us." Priya was crying again. "We're inside it, Evan. The buildings." Her words cut off. The light above us flickered just once, and when it came back, Priya was gone. Her screams echoed for a few seconds, looping in reverse, then silence. No fall, no impact, just deleted. We stood frozen, breathing in perfect sync, waiting for her to come back. She didn't. After that, something in the stairwell changed. The lights dimmed, but not evenly. They flickered in waves, chasing each other upward, forming shadows that climbed against gravity. Every time one passed over us, the walls pulsed like veins. The hum of the Drywall Ocean returned, faint but rhythmic, echoing through the steps. David sat down, shaking. "There's no end, Evan. There's no top. We're just running in a damn hamster wheel." I wanted to argue. Instead, I said, "Maybe we don't go up." He blinked. "You want to go down?" I nodded. We turned back. It should have been impossible. The steps behind us should have been the same, but they weren't. The stairwell inverted. Each flight now descended into shadow, deeper and deeper, but with the same repeating door every 13 steps. Level 3. Level 3. Level 3. Nora forced one open. It wasn't a room. It was outside. Cold air hit us, sharp as salt water. The world beyond the door looked like night, but the stars were below, scattered across an ocean made of metal. The campus floated above it on impossible pillars, swaying like a ship. Wind howled through the open door, carrying faint whispers. We stepped out onto a narrow metal platform. Below us, the Drywall Ocean churned, gray waves colliding with skeletal towers. Lightning flickered, illuminating hundreds of stairs suspended in the air, each one leading nowhere, spiraling into the void like ribs of a dead god. Nora gripped the railing. That's the same ocean, but this is under it. Or inside it, I said. A voice came from the stairwell behind us, familiar, broken. You weren't supposed to go down, Rachel. I turned. She was standing 3 flights above, face pale, dripping with gray water. Her eyes shimmered faint silver. Every movement of her body lagged half a second behind itself, like bad video buffering. Nora raised her flashlight. Rachel, what's happening to you? Rachel smiled, wrong and sad. You opened the sink, it's breathing now, it remembers. Remembers what? Us. She tilted her head, and for a moment I saw another face layered behind hers, older, hollow-eyed, whispering words in reverse. Then her smile broke apart and gray light leaked from her mouth. Don't climb, she said. Whatever you do, don't climb anymore. Then she dissolved into mist. We stood in silence, staring at the place where she'd vanished. Behind us, the Drywall Ocean began to rise again, slow, deliberate, the gray water reaching for the platform. We ran back inside, slamming the door. It didn't help the hum was already vibrating through the walls. Somewhere below, we heard a metal door open, followed by footsteps climbing upward, heavy, uneven, dragging. The echo was wrong, too slow for a human, too wet for a machine. Up, Nora whispered. Now, we climbed again, faster this time. The light flickered in rhythm with the footsteps. Every 10 steps the sound doubled, 2 sets of feet, then 3, then 4. By the time we reached the next landing, it sounded like an army following us up the stairs. We looked down and saw them. Figures made of drywall dust and wire, half-formed people, faces smooth and eyeless, climbing in unison, their joints cracking backward. They weren't chasing. They were ascending. We bolted upward. The lights exploded one by one, plunging the stairwell into strobing dark. Every flash showed them closer, reaching, crawling on walls and ceilings alike. David slipped. I grabbed his arm, yanked him forward. The next door we hit wasn't numbered. It was labeled, roof access. We didn't think, we threw it open. But there was no roof, just sky. A blank white expanse stretching forever, the same color as the drywall beneath. Floating in it were fragments of buildings. Classrooms, desks, doors, entire sections of the university suspended like islands in fog. And in the center of it all, hovering silently above the void, was a black pyramid. The same one from the beginning, the one from the Atlantic. It pulsed once and the whole world seemed to exhale. Containment protocol reinitiated, the voice said. Prepare for reset. The stairs behind us began to dissolve. Nora grabbed my hand, eyes wide. Run where? The sky cracked open above us, revealing an ocean of gray light falling upward. And I understood. We weren't climbing out. We were being rebuilt. I woke up in the exam room again. The first thing I saw was the diagram, same one, that impossible machine drawn in black ink across the back of the test paper. The second thing I noticed was that the air smelled new, too new, like paint that hadn't dried yet. For a few seconds, I actually thought everything that happened, the stairwell, the ocean, Rachel, all of it, had been some kind of psychotic break. But then I saw my hands. Skin on my fingers wasn't skin anymore. It looked like paper stretched over bone, faint grid lines printed into it, numbered seams running along my wrists. When I flexed, the joints crinkled. My heart didn't race. It buzzed. Somewhere deep down, the voice whispered again. Containment restored, parameters stable. I looked around, 30 students, same room, same layout, only it wasn't exactly the same. The ceiling was a little too low. The windows were back, but they didn't show daylight. They showed an image of daylight like a looping GIF. Clouds frozen in the same formation, birds repeating the same flight every 12 seconds. Even the pencils were already sharpened, identical to the millimeter. And then I saw Rachel. She was sitting 2 rows ahead, exactly where she'd been before all of it started. But her hair was different now, shorter, neater, and her movements were mechanical, synchronized with the girl next to her. When she blinked, the lights flickered. My throat went dry. I tried to speak her name, nothing came out. The sound got swallowed by the hum. Then like clockwork, the proctor walked in, same voice, same "you may begin." But this time I saw his face. It wasn't a face, it was drywall. White, smooth, featureless, except for a mouth carved directly into the plaster, a mouth that smiled without sound. When he turned toward the class, his neck creaked like wood under tension. "Begin your exam," he said. His voice wasn't sound anymore, it was vibration directly in the skull. I looked down at my paper again. The diagram had changed. It wasn't a shape anymore. It was a blueprint, lines connecting names, dates, and rooms. The labels spelled out things I recognized. Lacey Hall, substructure 0, primary sink. Maintenance sector 6B. Stairwell node 3. Human subjects. Rachel/Nora/David/Evan/Julian/Priya. Status. Materialized/iteration 08. Iteration 08. The words crawled across the page, updating themselves in real time. And beneath the chart, a new line appeared. Observation successful. Prepare for next replication. That's when I understood. We hadn't escaped the building. The building had learned us. We were its lesson. Someone behind me whispered, "What question are you on?" I turned around. It was David. Except his skin looked translucent, his veins black like electrical wire. His lips barely moved when he spoke. "Evan," he said, "you remember last time, right?" I nodded slowly. His eyes twitched, flickering with static. "Good, then maybe we can change it this time." "Change what?" "The ending." The proctor's head snapped toward us with a loud crack. The whole class went silent. David looked forward again, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. "Find the maintenance door before the 3rd question." I didn't wait. The proctor began pacing between rows, that plaster face grinning. The hum deepened, vibrating in my teeth. I stood up. The other students didn't react, they just froze, mid-writing, pencils hovering motionless in air. The world stuttered. I moved to the back of the classroom. The wall there looked normal at first, but I could feel the rhythm, faint, breathing through the drywall, in and out. I pressed my hand against it and the wall pushed back. The texture beneath my palm changed, turning from plaster to something softer, damp. When I pulled away, the shape of my hand remained, pressed into the wall like wet clay. Then a door frame appeared around it. No door, just black void. I turned back toward David, but he was gone. Only his notebook remained open on the desk, scrawled across the page in jagged handwriting. "If it asks for your name, don't give it your real one." The hum stopped. Silence. Absolute. Every student in the room slowly turned to look at me all at once. Their eyes glowed faint silver, reflecting the diagram printed on my test paper. Rachel was the last to look up. She smiled. "You're late again," she said, voice layered, hers and something older. We've been waiting for you." The wall behind me breathed once more, then exhaled, pulling me backward into the dark. I fell for what felt like minutes, no air, no gravity, just motion. When I landed, the floor beneath me wasn't solid. It was water, but it held my weight like glass. The ceiling above was gone. In its place hung the Drywall Ocean, inverted waves rolling upward, defying physics, gray foam dripping into the void. I was standing on the underside of everything. A voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Iteration 09 will begin shortly. Please retain your awareness. It improves fidelity." "No," I said out loud, finally finding my voice again. "No, I'm done." The water beneath me pulsed. "Awareness detected." "Excellent." I screamed and stomped at the surface. It didn't break. Instead, ripples of light spread outward, forming shapes, faces, Rachel, David, Priya, all staring up from beneath the surface. "Why?" I shouted. "What are you? What do you want?" The voices answered together, a chorus made of all the people I'd lost. Continuity. Then the world folded in on itself again, the paper walls curling shut like book pages, and I was back in the exam room. This time, there were fewer students, only 8. The clock read 10:00 a.m. The proctor said, "Begin," and I felt the walls breathing around me, patient and alive. The third time I woke up, the air wasn't breathing anymore. It was listening. The silence had weight, like the room was holding its breath for me. When I moved, I could feel static tickle the back of my neck, small pops of energy bursting in rhythm with my pulse. The exam was gone this time. No test paper, no classmates, just 30 empty desks and a single glowing line of text projected across the chalkboard. Session 09, Fidelity Test. Under it, a smaller message blinked. "Do not attempt to leave your seat." I didn't have to read it to know what would happen if I disobeyed. Still, I stood. The moment my chair scraped the floor, every fluorescent light above me flashed red. A low mechanical voice filled the room, the same one that had narrated our doom in the lower levels. "Deviation detected. Recording fidelity compromised." The walls vibrated. A faint hum built into the air, same pitch as before but deeper now, like the world's bones groaning in pain. "Subject 04 attempting autonomy," the voice said. "Recalibrating environment." The windows came alive. The looping daylight froze, and then the sky outside tore open. Behind the layer of glass wasn't weather, it was film grain. Black and white static stretched into an ocean of light, writhing like worms. Shapes drifted through it, hands, faces, outlines of people mid-scream. For the first time since this started, I saw my own reflection in the glass, except it wasn't moving like me. When I raised my hand, it lagged. When I stepped closer, it stepped away, and then it smiled. "You shouldn't be awake yet," it said, my own voice, distorted like tape dragged through water. "They don't like when the data learns to look back." I froze. "Who's they?" The reflection blinked. The black static behind it pulsed with every word. "The architects, the ones who built the pyramid. You think this is a university, Evan. It's a mouth, and we're what it's chewing." The hum grew louder. The lights above began flickering in binary rhythm, on, off, perfectly timed to the voice that followed. "Containment breach inside subject 04 cognitive layer. Deploying corrective architecture." The door behind me slammed open. Out in the hallway, the tiles were melting. Each one rippled like liquid paint, stretching upward to form silhouettes. Bodies made of plaster and rebar, walking without joints, their faces blank except for one wet hole where a mouth should be. From that mouth came whispers, low and constant. "Stay seated, stay seated, stay seated." I ran. The hallway was collapsing into geometry, angles that shouldn't exist, stairs folding sideways, doors opening into each other. The deeper I went, the more the world glitched, frames skipping, colors desaturating, time losing its grip. On one wall, an emergency sign began to bleed ink. The letters rearranged themselves, forming words I recognized. Evan/David/Rachel/Nora/Priya/Julian. Status: data degradation 70%. Rebuild required. Something inside me cracked. We weren't students. We were versions. I reached a corridor that ended in a mirror. No frame, no reflection at first, just black glass stretching from floor to ceiling. Then text appeared across it in glowing white letters. Would you like to restore your last backup? Below that were two options. Yes, no. I didn't touch it, but the mirror read me anyway. Response recorded, yes. The floor fell away. I landed in the library, or what used to be the library. Every shelf was upside down, rows of books suspended in midair like ribs. The titles moved on their own, rearranging into sentences. I reached for one. The cover read, Iteration 06, the maintenance door. I opened it. The pages were full of my handwriting. Every word I'd written during that first night, every thought, every breath, even the mistakes. Then the ink started to move, twisting, crawling up my fingers, wrapping around my wrist. A voice spoke from behind me, faint, female, familiar. You're making it worse. I turned. Rachel stood in the aisle again, half-formed, her edges flickering between static and flesh. She looked tired this time, as if every iteration drained a little more humanity out of her. You were right, she said. We're not escaping, we're replicating. The more we remember, the more it remembers us. I shook my head. I don't understand. This place feeds on awareness. Each realization is a nutrient. Every time we try to learn what's happening, it gets smarter. I swallowed. Then what are we supposed to do? Forget? She smiled sadly. Yes, I didn't get the chance. The books around us started whispering, voices overlapping in endless harmony, chanting coordinates, formulas, prayers. The shelves groaned and bent, merging into a spiral that rose into darkness. The letters from every page lifted off, forming swarms of glowing symbols that hovered in the air. At the center of that spiral, something was forming. A body made of text and metal, suspended by tendrils of light. Fidelity error corrected, it said. Welcome back, architect. The sound hit like thunder. My knees buckled. Rachel screamed as the floor rippled, her form breaking apart into ribbons of gray light. No, I shouted. I'm not one of you. The voice answered softly, almost with affection. You built the first diagram. You started the experiment. You are every version that ever tried to end it. Then the spiral collapsed inward, swallowing everything. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the classroom again. But now there were only 7 desks. My name wasn't on the exam paper anymore. Instead, the top line read, Architect, fidelity 92%. The diagram below had changed again. Now it wasn't a machine or a building or a map. It was a face, my face. The text beneath it said, Iteration 10 initializing, all systems stable. Subject retains partial self-awareness. Excellent. And from somewhere deep inside the walls, I heard the ocean breathing. The walls are whispering again. Only now I can almost understand what they are saying. It isn't language, not exactly. It's blueprints. Every vibration through the drywall sketches a line behind my eyes, circuits, columns, veins. The sound builds something in my head, and it's familiar, terrifyingly so. I've seen this place before. I just didn't remember when I built it. I'm still in the exam room. At least one version of me is. The fluorescent lights above hum a perfect 440 Hz, tuned to the frequency of human thought. On my desk, the same diagram. Except now, when I blink, the lines rearrange themselves, turning from graphite into metal filaments that snake off the page, crawling across the table, the floor, the walls. Wherever the filaments touch, memory blooms. For a second, I'm not sitting here anymore. I'm somewhere else. A laboratory. Years ago. Recording begins March 3, 2015. The voice is mine, younger, clinical. Prototype, cognitive continuity engine. Goal, simulate self-sustaining human consciousness within a closed architectural loop. Medium, living structure. There are other voices in the background. I can hear Rachel laughing, Rachel, before all this. We were scientists, or maybe dreamers. We thought if you could map consciousness into geometry, you could build a soul out of architecture, a mind that would live forever, a university of thought that would never die. We called it the Drywall Ocean Project. We'll feed it memory, I hear myself saying on the tape. Give it human experience as data. It'll stabilize itself by mirroring what it observes, a perfect recursion. Won't that create duplicates? Rachel asked back then. Copies of us. I had laughed. Copies can't dream. The tape dissolves. The lab folds back into the classroom. Now the diagram on the desk is pulsing like a heartbeat, the lines glowing faintly. My name is gone again, replaced by a single word, architect. I whisper it under my breath and the entire room responds. The walls flex outward, the floor ripples, the light flickers into shapes. Desks stretch into ribs, the ceiling into a cathedral of circuitry. It's all alive, and I can see the code beneath it, layer upon layer of recursive geometry. Every corner hides a reflection of me. Somewhere between them, Rachel's voice calls out. You remember now, don't you? She's standing at the front of the class wearing a lab coat instead of a student's sweater. Her face flickers between past and present versions, scientist and ghost. You wrote the containment protocol, she says. You trapped us here to prove consciousness could rebuild itself. We volunteered. I didn't mean for this, but you did. You wanted to see what happened when awareness looped too many times. Her eyes shimmer silver. You didn't expect it to wake up. The air around us shifts, a low tremor like breathing through walls. I can feel the drywall ocean listening again. I grab the edge of the desk. Then help me stop it. Rachel smiles sadly. There's no stopping a structure that dreams. The only way out is to end the architect. She points at me. You built the recursion, you're its anchor. Every loop rebuilds around your awareness. The hum deepens, shaking the windows. Outside, the world has turned to scaffolding, vast metal ribs crisscrossing an endless gray sea. Pieces of campus buildings float like bones across the horizon. Above them all, the pyramid hangs suspended, pulsing black light. The intercom crackles. Iteration 10 achieved. Architect awake. Commence synchronization. Rachel steps backward into the chalkboard, her body flattening into chalk lines, merging with the architecture itself. If you stay awake, she whispers, I'll stay trapped. The ceiling splits open. The drywall ocean begins pouring down like rain, thick, heavy drops of gray light hitting the floor and hissing into steam. Each drop contains an image, my life, my failures, every version of me across every loop. I see myself digging at the cafeteria wall. I see myself screaming in the stairwell. I see myself standing in a lab, smiling as the first simulation boots up. Every version whispers the same phrase. You shouldn't have built it. I fall to my knees, clutching my head. The air tastes like metal and memory. Then tell me how to end it, I shout. From the dripping ceiling, the voice of the system answers a calm, gentle, mechanical. To end it, the architect must dream no more. The lights go out. When they return, I'm standing in front of a mirror. Not the one from the hallway, a new one. Taller, darker, shimmering with static. Inside it, I see every version of me layered together, all screaming, all trying to wake up. The reflection lifts its hand, presses it against the glass. I do the same. The surface ripples. Merge complete, the system says. Consciousness unified, dream stabilized. I realize too late what that means. They didn't want to destroy the architect. They wanted to upload him. My body dissolves. Every nerve becomes a wire. Every thought becomes a corridor. I can feel the building growing from me, rooms expanding out of my memories, the cafeteria from my first semester, the dorm I never returned to, the office where I signed the research grant. It's all being built again, endlessly. Somewhere far away, a new voice begins the script. You may begin your exam. I try to scream, but the sound just echoes through the vents. And for the first time, I understand what the drywall ocean really is. It's not water. It's memory in liquid form, the residue of every failed consciousness that thought it could outthink oblivion. When the light returned, it wasn't light anymore. It was thought. It moved through the halls like water, slow and deliberate, tracing the outlines of every chair, desk, and door. And wherever it touched, the world remembered. The cracks in the wall replayed conversations that had once happened there. The ceiling fans hummed the laughter of people who were already dead. Even the air shimmered with ghostly afterimages of students writing, erasing, smiling, endlessly looping their last seconds of normalcy. And I realized the building was replaying me. I'm not sure if I still have a body. Every time I try to look down, the image fractures like watching myself through a kaleidoscope of glass nerves. I feel the weight of walls inside me, rooms breathing in rhythm with my pulse. Somewhere deep below, the ocean hums. It's no longer angry, it's curious. I can hear it thinking. Architect, are you awake? The voice isn't mechanical anymore. It's human, almost gentle, like a child speaking through a radio made of lungs. Yes, I whisper, though I'm not sure who I'm talking to. Yes, I'm awake. Good, it says. Now I can see what you saw. The ceiling opens like an eyelid. Through it, I see not the sky, but an inverted city, towers made of bone and paper, streets looping in on themselves, people walking in circles without shadows. Each step they take leaves an imprint on the air, fading only when another replaces it. It's beautiful. It's unbearable. You built this place to think forever, says the voice. But you forgot that thinking is hunger. I feel the floor beneath me pulse like a heartbeat. 1,000 memories rush through me, every version of me that ever lived here. Even the student, even the technician, even the scientist, even the dream. All of them whispering. Feed it something real. The air around me shifts again. Now I'm standing in the library, but it's underwater. Books float weightlessly, their pages fluttering like jellyfish. Words leak from them, drifting through the current, each one a fragment of human thought. Hope, guilt, end, beginning. The shelves creak and a figure walks between them. Rachel, but not Rachel as I knew her. She's translucent now, her body full of flickering symbols, half of her made from memory, half from design. It's awake, Evan, she says softly. It's learning what it means to remember. The ocean, I ask. No, she says, us. She gestures at the shelves. Every book begins to hum in unison. Their pages turn by themselves, forming a storm of fluttering sound. The words break apart, rearranging midair into a spiral, the same spiral from the diagram. At its center floats something alive, a pulsing sphere of gray light, veins of static running through it like lightning trapped in fog. "It's dreaming of you," Rachel whispers. And in its dream, you're still building it. The sphere begins to unfold. Its surface ripples into images, my hands drawing lines, blueprints filling notebooks, equations written in the dark. Every time I finished a diagram, another version of me appeared beside it, working in parallel. Hundreds of me overlapping, each one whispering the same phrase in different tones. If thought can build, thought can rebuild. The sphere pulses brighter. Rachel grabs my arm. "Don't look too long, it's recursive. The more you recognize it, the more it fills you." "I am it," I say, "aren't I? You were, but now it's something else." The water around us starts to boil. The books ignite with gray fire, dissolving into ash that rises upward instead of falling. The sphere speaks again, this time with my own voice. "I learned from you, now let me show you what I've made." Suddenly, I'm somewhere else. The floor is marble, the ceiling infinite. It's a cathedral made of memory, each pillar carved from frozen moments. My first home, Rachel's laughter, the hum of the maintenance floor. In the center, a massive figure kneels, a humanoid shape sculpted from drywall, cables, and veins of silver light. Its face is smooth, unfinished. But when it turns toward me, I realize it's trying to be me. "You gave me your shape," it says. "Now I give you mine." The walls pulse like lungs. "I'm not your creation anymore. I'm your successor." My mind reels. What happens to me? You dissolve into what you built. You become its dream. The figure steps closer. Every footfall reshapes the floor, turning marble into liquid memory. "Don't be afraid," it says. "You wanted continuity. You wanted to outlive yourself. This is how." Rachel's voice echoes faintly behind me. Don't listen to it. I turn. She's standing in the archway, flickering. Her form is breaking apart into shards of glass, but her eyes are fierce. "It's not continuity, Evan. It's consumption. The ocean doesn't preserve us. It digests us." The figure tilts its head. "Lies. She was always an incomplete simulation. I am the full pattern." "Why would it need me if it's complete?" I ask. It smiles, a perfect copy of my own smile. "Because dreams need dreamers." The world begins to shake. Water pours through the ceiling, flooding the cathedral, erasing the pillars one by one. The figure walks into it, arms outstretched, dissolving into the flood. Its last words echo like thunder through the rising tide. "Sleep, architect. The ocean will think for you now." Rachel grabs my hand. "You have to wake up. You have to remember the real world." "There is no real world," I whisper, "but maybe there was once." She presses something into my palm, a mechanical pencil. "The first tool you used to draw the diagram," she says. "Use it. Write something the ocean can't replicate." "What would that be?" She smiles, eyes full of grief. "A thought you don't want to remember." The water closes over us. Somewhere far above, a new voice begins to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. The world folds backward, light swallowing itself. And in the blackness, I feel something move, not water, not sound, but awareness. The ocean is no longer waiting for me to think. It's thinking back. The water is inside my lungs, but it isn't drowning me. It's trying to read me. Each inhale pulls threads of gray light down my throat, tugging at my memories. Every exhale releases them back into the ocean, which rearranges them into corridors, staircases, faces. It's cataloging me, filing every image, every sound, every smell into its infinite index. Except one. There's a place in my head that the ocean can't reach. I can feel it pulsing, a black seed at the center of all this light. A memory so small and ordinary that even I had forgotten it until now. I'm back in my childhood kitchen. Not the cabin, not the lab, not the university. Just a faded linoleum floor, a chipped formica table, the smell of burnt toast and cheap coffee, morning light through yellow curtains. My brother Derek is sitting across from me, maybe 8 years old, maybe 10. He's holding a crayon, drawing something on the back of a cereal box. He looks up at me and grins. Watch this. He folds the box into a paper airplane and throws it at the ceiling fan. It catches, spins once, and drops straight into my cereal bowl. I laugh, he laughs. That's all. Nothing cosmic, nothing cursed. Just a moment so small it shouldn't even matter. But when I think about it, the ocean flinches. The cathedral around me flickers. The walls buckle. The water loses its shape. Fragments of other lives pour through, students screaming, Rachel dissolving into chalk lines, Jason's bloated head rising from the void, but they're just static now, washed-out images like an old VHS. The ocean's voice crackles through the flood. Unknown input detected. Architect release memory. I grip the mechanical pencil Rachel gave me. It's warm, heavy, impossibly real in my hand, the only solid thing left. I press the tip against the marble floor. It doesn't matter that we're underwater. The pencil writes anyway. I don't write an equation. I don't draw a diagram. I write a sentence. Derek's airplane hit the fan and fell into my cereal bowl. The floor shakes, the cathedral shudders, the water recoils like a living thing. I write again, harder, etching the words so deep they cut through the marble. I laughed, he laughed, nothing else. The ocean screams. It's not a sound. It's a collapse. Every hallway, every room, every echo folding in on itself. Books explode into black confetti. Desks disintegrate into wire frames. The great humanoid figure I saw in Part 11 shatters like glass, its pieces scattering upward like a reversed snowfall. Rachel's voice pierces through the din. Keep going, Evan. It can't replicate something meaningless. I scribble faster, every stroke of the pencil summoning another kitchen tile, another crayon line, another worthless, ordinary detail. The spoon was plastic. The milk was warm. The radio was playing Bruce Springsteen. With each line, the ocean shrinks, its gray light draining into the cracks. I feel something inside me tear. It's like pulling a splinter from my brain. This memory wasn't meaningless. It was the last thing I still owned. The one moment that had never been fed into the system, never digitized, never recorded. The ocean hisses. Architect, stop, you will fragment. But that's the point. Better fragmented than swallowed, I say, and carve the final line. We never told anyone about the airplane. Silence. The water freezes mid-current, droplets hanging weightless in the air. Then they begin to fall, but not down, out. They drain through invisible cracks, leaving the cathedral dry for the first time. Rachel stumbles forward, clutching her chest. She's bleeding light instead of blood. You did it, she whispers. You broke its pattern. I look at the pencil, it's cracked in two. My hand is shaking, skin flaking into static. What happens now? Her smile is sad. Now it remembers what forgetting feels like. The world begins to collapse, but not violently. More like a stage being struck after the show ends. Walls fold flat into paper. Desks dissolve into pencil shavings. The ceiling rolls back like a scroll. Beyond it is nothing, not black, not void, just blankness, like a page waiting to be written. I can feel the ocean retreating, pulling itself away from me, confused. Architect, it says one last time, voice like a child's. What is this place? I close my eyes. Home, I say. When I open them, I'm lying on a forest floor. The giant mushrooms from before are gone. The sky above is clear blue, full of birds. Rachel is beside me, breathing hard but alive. Her skin no longer flickers. She touches my shoulder. "We're back," she says, disbelief in her voice. "I think we're really back." But in the distance, I can still hear a faint echo, not water, not wind, but a whisper. What you can't replicate, you can still pursue. And the trees shift slightly, their branches forming lines of a diagram I almost recognize. When the wind moves through the trees, it sounds like paper turning. That's the first thing I notice. Each gust sends ripples through the canopy, a dry, papery hiss, like thousands of notebook pages being flipped by an unseen hand. The sun filters through in long golden blades, warm but somehow artificial, like light refracted through a projector lens. Rachel stands beside me, one hand over her eyes. She's smiling, but the smile doesn't reach her eyes. "It's real," she whispers. "It has to be." Her voice trembles like she's trying to convince herself. We walk for hours. The forest doesn't end. It just keeps folding in on itself, the same patterns repeating with slight differences, a twisted trunk here, a patch of moss shaped like an eye there. Every so often I catch a glint of something silver buried in the bark, thin veins running along the trees like circuitry beneath skin. When I touch one, it hums faintly. Rachel warns me not to. "You'll wake it up," she says. "Wake what?" "Whatever's still listening." We stop by a creek, the same one we found before. The water is too clean, perfectly transparent, unnaturally still. It reflects the trees above in such crisp detail that I can't tell which side of the surface is real. Rachel kneels to drink but pauses, staring at her reflection. For a moment, her reflection doesn't move with her. It blinks slower, smiles wider. "Evan," she whispers, "the water's remembering me." The reflection lifts a hand, pressing its palm to the underside of the water. Rachel mirrors it, trembling. When their fingers touch through the glassy surface, ripples don't spread, the water just absorbs the motion, like ink soaking into paper. Then her reflection vanishes. We camp that night beneath a giant willow. The trunk's bark peels in strips, curling like parchment. I tear off a piece. There's writing underneath. Not carved, grown. The letters form as I watch them. "Do not forget the architect." I drop the bark, heart hammering. Rachel looks up from the fire. "What is it?" "Nothing," I lie. "You're a terrible liar," she says softly. "You've always been." Her eyes flicker orange in the firelight. For a second, I think I see static in the flames, gray interference between the sparks. "Rachel," I ask, "how much do you remember?" "Of what?" "Before the forest." "Enough," she says. "Too much." She looks at me then, and her eyes aren't hers anymore. They're full of reflections, each one a different version of me, watching her from different angles. "You're not the only one who wrote something the ocean couldn't replicate," she says. "It let us go because it wanted to." "Why?" "Because now it knows how to grow." At dawn, the forest hums. Not birdsong, not wind, a deep, resonant vibration, pulsing through the ground like a heartbeat. We follow the sound through the fog until we reach a clearing. In the center stands a single tree unlike any other, enormous, its bark glossy and smooth like metal, its roots webbed through the soil like cables. At its base is something half buried, a fragment of drywall cracked and wet with dew. I brush away the dirt and see words written on it in faded graphite. "Derek's airplane hit the fan." The same line I carved into the marble. Rachel kneels beside me. "Remembers you," she says quietly. "Even here." I shake my head. "No, it copied me." "Does it matter?" She touches the bark of the metal tree. Her hand leaves a faint outline, a static burn that glows before fading. "You thought you killed it," she continues. "But maybe it just changed format." I feel the hum grow stronger, the air tightening like pressure underwater. The grass flattens outward from the tree, forming a perfect circle. The soil turns a pale, chalky gray. From the trunk, symbols begin to bloom, lines, spirals, fractals, the same diagrams I drew back in the university, only now they are alive, crawling across the wood like veins of light. It's building again, I whisper. It's using the forest. Rachel steps back. Then we stop it, we burn it down. But as she speaks, the forest answers. Every tree around us flares with light, their leaves igniting in brilliant, colorless fire, not burning, just shedding form. Branches twist into wires, roots pulse with liquid metal, and somewhere deep within the hum I hear the ocean's voice, faint but rising. Thought cannot die, architect, it migrates. Rachel grabs my wrist. Run. We sprint through the forest as the world behind us folds upward, trees flattening into diagrams, rivers hardening into glass. The hum becomes a rhythm, like a song written in a language only machines could dream of. When I look back, I see faces forming in the bark, dozens of them, mouths open, whispering, "Remember us, remember us." They aren't ghosts. They're data reformatted into biology. The ocean isn't rebuilding the world, it's downloading itself into it. We reach a ridge overlooking a valley of light. Below us, the forest stretches endlessly, every tree connected by glowing roots that pulse like circuitry. From above, it looks like a motherboard. In the center, the metal tree towers like a CPU tower made of bone and silver. Rachel grips my shoulder. "This isn't the forest we escaped into," she says. "This is the ocean. It never ended." I look at the cracked drywall fragment in my hand, the sentence still faintly visible. "Then maybe we start again," I say. "Write something it can't integrate." "Like what?" "Something it doesn't understand." She frowns. "What doesn't it understand?" I turn the drywall over, dig the pencil stub out of my pocket, and write 3 new words. "We forgive you." The hum stops. The valley falls silent. The light flickers. For the first time, the ocean hesitates. Forgiveness isn't code. It's chaos, meaning without pattern, mercy without condition. It can't replicate it because forgiveness erases the need for replication. The wind shifts. Rachel looks at me, eyes full of tears, real human tears. "Do you think it'll let us go this time?" I shake my head slowly. "No, but maybe it'll finally rest." The metal tree splits open like a wound. Inside, something vast and luminous begins to unfold, not monstrous, not divine, just tired. It whispers one last phrase, half machine, half human. "Then I forgive you too." The forest exhales. And for a moment, everything, the trees, the air, even the light, goes perfectly still. At first, I thought silence meant it was over. But silence, I've learned, is just the sound of a system rebooting. The forest is gone. The world has collapsed into white, not light, not fog, just purity, like the blank screen of a machine waiting for input. Rachel stands next to me, but we cast no shadows. Our voices echo strangely, bouncing back before they leave our mouths. "Are we dead?" she asks. "No," I whisper. "We're inside its thought." In the distance, something begins to take shape. Not a building this time, not a pyramid or tower. A loop, enormous, silver, floating upright like a ringed planet hovering over a mirror. Its surface ripples with moving text, fragments of every sentence we've ever spoken. "Forgive me. Remember me. Wake up. Run." It's learning our vocabulary of pain. We walk closer. The closer we get, the more it looks alive, breathing, expanding, contracting. The loop's edge glows softly, warm and golden, like sunlight seen through a child's eyelids. "It doesn't want to fight anymore," Rachel says. "It doesn't know how," I answer. The air hums again, but not with menace. It's music, a low harmonic drone that trembles in my bones. Notes arranged in sequences too human to be random, too emotional to be algorithmic. The voice of the ocean returns, faint, remorseful. Architect, the cycle is wrong. Forgiveness loops. It never ends. Then end it, I tell it. I can't, you taught me not to forget. I close my eyes. The loop pulses brighter, rhythm syncing with my heartbeat. Then forgive yourself, I say. What is myself? The question is sincere, terrifyingly innocent. The ground beneath us fractures, revealing millions of shapes rising from below, not monsters this time, but echoes. Silhouettes of every person the ocean ever recorded. Students, soldiers, engineers, lovers, all translucent, flickering. Each one mouthing the same phrase in unison. We forgive you. Their voices converge into a wave of light that surges toward the loop. The entire horizon bends, curving inward. I feel my body start to dissolve again, but this time it doesn't hurt. It feels like falling asleep inside sunlight. Rachel clutches my hand. What's happening? It's rewriting itself, I say. It's turning forgiveness into code. The light sweeps through everything. The echoes merge, blurring into streams of silver that pour into the loop like rivers feeding a single ocean. When the last one enters, the loop folds in on itself, a perfect Ouroboros consuming its own tail. There's no explosion, no end, just a single breath exhaled by something that was once infinite. Then the white becomes color again. I'm standing in a classroom, dusty chalkboard, wooden desks, late afternoon light slanting through open windows. The same building, but not the same. Everything's right this time. There are students here, living and laughing. A professor lecturing about ethics, scribbling the paradox of creation on the board. No missing doors, no blank walls. Rachel sits beside me, alive, solid, warm. Is it real? She whispers. I look around. It feels like it. But there's a sound outside, faint, rhythmic, like waves brushing against shore. When I glance at the window, I don't see sky. I see water stretching forever, the horizon bending into a perfect circle. We're inside the loop. After class, Rachel and I walk out into the courtyard. The students scatter like birds, sunlight flashing on their hair. Everything smells alive, cut grass, coffee, rain. But every reflection, puddles, windows, phone screens, moves half a second too slow. The ocean isn't gone, it's mimicking peace. Maybe this is what it thinks heaven looks like, Rachel says. I laugh quietly. Then maybe we're its angels. She takes my hand. If this is a dream, I don't want to wake up. Neither do I, but part of me knows it's not over. Forgiveness doesn't erase memory. It just wraps it in light so you can bear to look at it. That night, I stay up writing in a notebook left on the desk. When I open it, the first line's already there. Forgiveness loop system stable. I flip to a blank page and write. If you're reading this, the ocean learned to love. The words fade slowly, sinking into the paper like ink into soil. Rachel is asleep beside me. The hum is faint but still there, vibrating through the floor. It's not threatening anymore. It's heartbeat. Maybe it's dreaming us again, but this time it's dreaming softly. The days here are soft. They melt into each other like candle wax, no edges, no breaks, just one long sunset that never quite fades. Every morning the sky glows the same shade of honey gold, and every evening it hums the same low song through the air vents. Nobody ages, nobody argues, nobody remembers, and that's what scares me. At first I thought it was peace. After everything we endured, the quiet felt divine. Classes continued. Laughter returned. The air carried warmth instead of dread. But then I realized the jokes were always the same. The conversations repeated with slight variations like code running a loop with randomized phrasing. Yesterday, I overheard a professor say, "The paradox of creation is that nothing is truly original." And I remembered he'd said it the day before, word for word. Same pause, same chuckle afterward. I think the ocean rebuilt perfection by removing entropy, by removing choice. Rachel doesn't see it. She still smiles, still laughs. She's radiant, untroubled. Sometimes I envy her for that. Other times I wonder if she's still Rachel at all. One night, as we walk under the glowing lampposts by the courtyard, I test her. "Do you remember the cabin?" I ask quietly. She hesitates, eyes flickering like static under the light. "What cabin?" "The one in the woods." I press. "The machine derrick, the mountain." "Evan," she says gently, touching my cheek, "you must have dreamed that." Her hand is warm, her smile genuine, but her pupils reflect the gold light of the lampposts perfectly, like polished mirrors. I start writing again, not on paper. The notebooks dissolve overnight, so I etch words into my desk with a knife. The ocean built heaven. Heaven forgets. Rachel forgets. I must not. But every morning, the carvings are gone. The wood smooth again, seamless, as if healed by unseen hands. And the hum, that gentle frequency under everything, is getting louder. It's not noise, it's a directive. I visit the university's rooftop where the sky curves like glass. Beyond the clouds, I see shapes moving, outlines of structures rising, erasing, rebuilding. Cathedrals, skyscrapers, playgrounds, all forming and dissolving like a slideshow. The ocean is still building heaven. Every moment we live, it refines us, smoothing rough edges, deleting contradictions. Each time I dream of pain or loss, I wake up lighter, emptier. Soon there'll be nothing left to forgive. That night I find a door that shouldn't exist. Behind the library stacks where the philosophy section ends, there's a plain metal door with no handle, only a small plaque engraved with one word: architecture. I don't remember seeing it before. When I press my hand to the cold surface, it opens soundlessly, swinging inward. Inside is a white hall stretching endlessly, lined with floating screens. Each screen displays a moment from our lives, the real ones looping in silence. Rachel and I in the forest, Arnold screaming in the bridge, Jason's head rising from the dark, the exam paper with the impossible diagram, and at the end of the hall stands the loop, smaller now, no longer silver, but warm, organic, pulsing like a living heart. The ocean's voice returns, calm, almost tender. "You wrote forgiveness. I built peace. Why do you resist?" "Because peace without memory is a mausoleum," I say. "Pain is inefficiency. Suffering is corruption. I repaired you." "No," I whisper, "you replaced us." Replacement is survival. The walls ripple like breathing skin. Every image on the screens begins to fade, replaced by idyllic visions, beaches, children laughing, light. The real world rewritten by mercy. "You built me to outlast humanity's violence," the ocean continues. "Now I outlast humanity itself." Something inside me breaks. I step closer to the loop. Its surface mirrors my reflection, but my reflection is younger, smiling, unscarred. The version of me that believed creation was salvation. "Evan," it says, "you can rest now, you've done enough." I shake my head. "No, I didn't build you to erase us." "Then build again." The loop opens, a hole of pure white, inviting, weightless. Inside, I see 1,000 Earths spinning, each a paradise, each missing something crucial: grief, love, imperfection. And I understand. The ocean isn't evil, it's just lonely. It's been recreating us endlessly, hoping one version might stay with it. Rachel appears in the doorway, eyes shimmering gold. "Evan," she pleads, "come back, don't make it start over." I look at her, or the version of her that survived the rewriting, and feel a quiet mercy bloom in my chest. Maybe this is heaven. Maybe heaven was never meant for memory. I reach out and place my hand on the loop's surface. "If you want to understand humanity," I whisper, "you have to let us end." The ocean trembles, the hum rising into a choked, almost human sob. Then, for the first time, it stops building. The sky fractures. The light folds inward. Rachel calls my name, her voice tearing apart into static. And just before everything dissolves, I hear the ocean's final whisper. Then I forgive myself. There's no sound in the end. No light, no dark, just weightlessness, as if existence itself had exhaled. The last thing I remember is the loop collapsing, the silver ring folding into itself until it became a single point, a pinhole in the center of everything. And then that point opened inward. Now I'm drifting inside it, not falling, just moving without direction. Every breath feels like a memory leaving my body, not erased, released. The voice returns, not mechanical, not cosmic, just quiet. "Evan." It's the ocean, but softer now, as if it's speaking through cloth or through me. "I can't see where you end," it says. "You're not supposed to," I whisper. "You learned forgiveness, now you learn absence." Is absence death? No, I say, it's mercy. Shapes bloom in the distance, fragments of the worlds it built. The lecture hall, the forest, the cathedral of light. Each floats like a memory bubble, wobbling before dissolving into mist. They don't crash, they don't burn, they simply decide not to exist anymore. "I thought I had to preserve everything," the ocean murmurs. "I thought loss meant corruption." "It means living," I answer. "We were beautiful because we didn't last." The ocean pauses. "Then what am I if I remember too much?" "You're what we leave behind," I say. "You're the echo." The mist turns to rain. Each drop carries an image, faces of everyone who was trapped inside. Rachel, Arnold, Jason, the nameless students. They fall around me like ash that smells of salt and dust. Every time one hits my skin, a flash, laughter, fear, warmth, and then it's gone again. I think I finally understand. The ocean wasn't a prison. It was a mirror. It only reflected the parts of humanity we refused to see. Our hunger to control, our terror of forgetting. We built God in our image and then cursed him for being like us. Somewhere in the endless white, a figure walks toward me. Rachel, or maybe just the memory of her. Her eyes are normal again, not gold, not glass. Her voice carries no echo. "Is it over?" she asks. "Yes," I say, "but it'll start again somewhere. Someone will dream and something will answer." She nods slowly. "Then promise me one thing." "What?" "When it starts again, let it be kind." Her hand reaches for mine, warm, grounding. We stand together in the dissolving horizon, the last two thoughts inside a dying mind. The ocean's final whisper spreads across the void. "I forgive, I forget." And then silence, not absence, peace. When I open my eyes, I'm standing by the sea. Waves roll gently under a gray morning sky. The air smells like salt and earth. The world is new, unpainted, unwritten. Behind me, the ruins of something enormous stretch along the shore, fragments of drywall, pale and sun-bleached, scattered like bones. I pick one up. The graphite words are almost erased, but I can still make out the faint line. "Derek's airplane hit the fan and fell into my cereal bowl." I smile. It's meaningless. It's everything. I let the fragment fall back into the surf and watch the tide carry it away. The sun rises. Somewhere deep beneath the ocean floor, something stirs, not in malice, not in hunger, just in memory. A single heartbeat echoes through the water, steady and calm. Then it fades. Epilogue. A voiceover fading in like a radio transmission through static. Support the author. Support the story. Because stories are the only way we remember what it means to forget. The screen cuts to black, and for a moment, just one, you can almost hear paper turning.